At first, self-improvement often feels like something you do occasionally. You work on a habit. You try to understand yourself more clearly. You make adjustments where they seem necessary. And in many ways, this feels completely reasonable. Growth, learning, and reflection are ordinary parts of life. But over time, something subtle can begin to happen. The process of improving yourself can stop feeling occasional and start becoming the way you relate to yourself. There's always something to work on, something to improve, something to understand more clearly. And because the process often happens gradually, the shift can be difficult to identify. It simply starts to feel normal, as if this is what thoughtful and self-aware people do. And because improvement can often feel genuinely meaningful, the process reinforces itself. You solve a problem. You gain an insight. You work on a part of yourself. And for a moment, you feel lighter, more resolved, more complete. But gradually, a familiar feeling returns. A sense of something still unsettled. Something else still needing work. And when that feeling returns, attention automatically shifts towards what that next improvement should be. So the process continues. And over time, something deeper can begin to happen. Your relationship with yourself starts changing. You stop experiencing yourself primarily as a person simply living a life and start to experience yourself as an ongoing project, something requiring continual refinement, correction, improvement, not necessarily in a dramatic way, in a very subtle way, a shift in orientation, where attention becomes increasingly organized around what still needs fixing, what still needs understanding, what still needs improvement. And because the process never fully concludes, the orientation itself can become stable. The project remains active, always moving towards a more complete version of yourself, a version that finally feels settled. And over time, this can create a very particular experience of identity, where the current version of yourself never fully feels finished, never fully feels sufficient, because attention is continually directed toward what still needs work. And when life becomes organized around this process, something important can become difficult to recognize. The possibility that the problem may not be the specific issue being worked upon, but the assumption that something fundamentally about you requires correction. Because if ordinary unease is repeatedly interpreted as evidence that something about you still needs to be fixed, then the project naturally continues. The feeling returns. Correction resumes. Another version of yourself becomes the target. And over time, the act of fixing yourself stops being a response to occasional problems and starts becoming a part of who you are. Not because growth is wrong, and not because reflection is unhealthy, but because the process has gradually become organized around trying to permanently resolve a feeling that continues to return, which means that the project no longer simply exists within life. The project starts organizing life itself. And when that happens, a different kind of question emerges. It's not a question of, what else can I do to improve myself? The question that emerges is, what happens when fixing yourself quietly becomes a central part of your identity. Because if the project itself never fully concludes, then the experience of yourself is unfinished, will also carry on indefinitely. And this raises a deeper possibility. What if the feeling of being incomplete has not simply been motivating this process, but is gradually built into the way you experience yourself? And that's something we'll definitely explore further in upcoming videos.